You ever just stop, stare at the ceiling, and feel that heavy silence? Like something inside you is watching you break every single promise you made to yourself. Yeah, that moment. That hollow punch in the gut when you realize the life you're living looks nothing like the one you once swore you'd build. And you don't tell anyone. You fake the smile. You post the filtered photo. But deep down, you know you're not even close to who you said you'd become. You remember the night you cried into your pillow and whispered, "Never again." You remember the day you looked in the mirror and vowed, "This is where I change everything." But then what happened? Life got loud. People distracted you. Fear pulled you back. And comfort, that silent killer, made you forget the fire that once burned in your chest. Let me tell you something: life doesn't care about your promises. It doesn't care about your intentions. It only responds to action. So if you're sitting there waiting for the right moment, that perfect window when the world will finally align and make it easy for you, let me save you the time. That moment isn't coming. You are the moment. You are the decision. You are the permission slip you've been waiting to sign. People will tell you to be realistic, be safe, be sensible. No, be relentless, be fierce, be unapologetically committed to that vision you once saw so clearly. Because if you don't fight for it, no one will. The world is full of people who gave up on their dreams and now roam through life like ghosts, haunted by the version of themselves they never became. Don't let that be your story. You said you'd get healthy. You said you'd leave that toxic relationship. You said you'd start the business, move to the city, write the book, run the marathon. You said you'd rise. You said you'd stop letting people walk all over you. So what are you doing? Where did that warrior version of you go? Let me remind you, there's a version of you buried under doubt, fear, and excuses. And that version is waiting, fists clenched, heart pounding, eyes blazing, waiting for you to remember, waiting for you to reclaim what's yours. And I don't care how far you've fallen. I don't care how long it's been. I don't care if people doubt you, mock you, or think it's too late. You are not here to please the crowd. You are here to conquer your own mountain, to become the person your younger self needed, to be the role model your future self will thank you for. If you gave up on yourself, today is the day you stand back up, not tomorrow, not next month, now. There is no rescue coming. The door you keep waiting for, you're the one who has to build it. You said you'd become stronger. You said you'd stop hiding. You said you'd rise no matter how many times you fell. So rise. Your excuses will never comfort you like your purpose will. Your distractions will never love you like your destiny will. That dream, that life you promised yourself, it's still out there. It's still possible, but only if you stop breaking your own heart by settling for less. Get up, go back to war, rewrite your story. Don't let another day pass in regret, because regret doesn't scream, it whispers. And one day, when you least expect it, it'll whisper, "You had the chance to be great. And you chose to forget." Don't forget. Not this time. Not ever. You ever notice how the loudest pain doesn't from other people's words? It comes from your own silence. That heavy, breathless quiet when you're alone, and no one's watching, and you realize you've been lying to yourself. That moment when you stare at your reflection and there's no noise, no chaos, just stillness. And in that stillness is the truth you've been avoiding, that you've stopped showing up for yourself, that you made promises, big ones, emotional ones, in moments of clarity, pain, desperation. You looked at your life and you swore, "This isn't who I'm going to be. I will change this. I will become better." And yet here you are months, maybe even years later, and you're still stuck, still making excuses, still pretending that the numbness is normal. People think pain is always loud. They think it's crying, yelling, screaming at the sky. But the real pain, the kind that breaks you slowly, is quiet. It's the mornings you wake up and feel nothing. The nights you lie in bed and feel everything. And the worst part, you don't tell anyone. You bury it. You smile. You act like everything's fine. But deep down, you know, you've let yourself down. You're not who you said you'd become. That silence, that internal knowing, that's the call you keep ignoring. But the longer you do, the louder it gets. Not with volume, but with weight. The weight of time slipping away. The weight of unlived potential. The weight of a life that was meant for more. and a version of you that once believed that fiercely. That voice isn't your enemy. That voice is your wake-up call, and you better listen before it goes quiet for good. Because if you can't face your own silence, you'll never hear your purpose. People always talk about keeping promises to others, to their partner, to their kids, to their boss. And that's great. But what about the promises you made to yourself? The ones you whispered when no one else was around. The ones that came from the deepest part of you. The hunger, the raw truth that said, I deserve better. You made a vow. Maybe it was after heartbreak. Maybe it was after betrayal. Maybe it was after looking around at your life and realizing, this can't be it. You looked yourself dead in the mirror and said, I will never go back to this version of me again. But here's the hard truth, somewhere along the way, you started treating your own promises like they didn't matter. Like they were negotiable. You bent for people. You shrank for comfort. You let yourself slide, saying, it's just for now, but now turned into a habit, and that habit turned into a lifestyle, and before you even realized it, you were living in betrayal. Not because of someone else, but because you stopped showing up for the most important commit you ever made, to become the person you were meant to be. Let me tell you something. The promises you make to yourself are sacred. More sacred than anything you give to anyone else. Because if you can't keep your word to you, nothing you say to others holds weight. That's how self-respect dies. Not in a loud crash, but in a quiet compromise. One skipped workout. One more day in that toxic job. One more yes, when your soul is screaming no. Every time you do that, you teach yourself you're not worth fighting for. You want confidence, discipline, strength. It doesn't come from a book or a podcast. It comes from knowing, I do what I say. I keep my word to me. Because that's where real power lies. In honoring your own word, even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching. We live in a world obsessed with intentions. People will tell you all day long what they want to do, what they plan to do, what they hope to become. You hear it constantly. I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm just waiting for the right time. But life doesn't respond to what you intend. It never has. It only moves when you do. It reacts to action, not daydreams, not potential, not plans that never leave the paper. You can be the most intelligent, capable, talented person in the room, but if you don't take action, none of it means a damn thing. Intentions are comfortable. They make you feel like you're doing something, even when you're not. That's the trap, because the brain gets a little hit of dopamine just for thinking about success, just for imagining the outcome. And if you're not careful, you'll get addicted to the feeling of preparing without ever stepping into the fire of execution. You'll confuse movement with progress. You'll confuse dreaming with doing. You don't get stronger by thinking about lifting weights. You don't get respected by talking about setting boundaries. And you don't change your life by waiting for motivation. You change it by moving. Tired, scared, unprepared, but moving. That's the difference between people who get what they want and people who stay stuck. One group takes messy, imperfect, relentless action. The other group keeps waiting to feel ready. But ready is a lie. It's a luxury you don't need. What you need is a decision. One that says, I may not feel prepared, but I'm going anyway. So if you're sitting there telling yourself you'll do it later, I have news for you: later doesn't exist. All you have is now. And if you don't act on what you say you want, then stop saying you want it. Because truth isn't in your words. It's in your behavior. Comfort is seductive. It lulls you in with soft lies and warm distractions. It tells you, you're fine, you've done enough, you don't need to push today. And it feels good, for a while. But here's what comfort doesn't tell you: it's slowly turning you into someone you won't recognize. Someone you'll one day resent, because nothing extraordinary is built in comfort. Nothing powerful is born in ease. That dream life you promised yourself, that version of you that's strong, unstoppable, grounded, that person doesn't grow inside a cushy routine. They're forged in discomfort, in struggle, in pressure, in making hard choices over and over and over again. You can't build mental tautness if you never do anything that scares you. You can't develop grit if you always choose what's convenient. Growth demands friction. That's the cost. And most people, they aren't willing to pay it. So they stay safe, they stay small, they choose temporary ease over permanent transformation. But let's be honest, is comfort really making you happy? Or just numb? Is it fulfilling you? Or just keeping you distracted enough not to notice how far you've drifted from who you said you'd be? The most dangerous part is, comfort makes you forget. Forget the hunger you had. Forget the fight in your gut. Forget the reason you wanted change in the first place. And when you forget long enough, you settle. You convince yourself this is good enough. You tell yourself, I should be grateful. But deep down you know you're lying, because the fire inside you doesn't go out. It just goes quiet. And it waits. It waits for you to wake up, get uncomfortable, and remember that you weren't made to live a life that's just fine. You were made to become something greater. And greatness doesn't live in comfort. It lives in the fire you keep avoiding. Fear is sneaky. It doesn't always show up as panic or screaming or full-blown terror. No, fear is far more clever than that. It slips in dressed as logic, as being realistic, as playing it safe. It tells you not to take that risk because it's not the right time. It whispers, let's be smart here, let's be practical. But what it's really saying is, stay small. Stay where it's comfortable. Don't try because if you fail, it'll hurt. And you listen, because it sounds rational. It sounds wise. But let me be clear, fear can wear the mask of reason, but it's still fear. It's still you protecting yourself from a future that doesn't even exist yet. You start shrinking your dreams. Not because you're not capable, but because fear has convinced you to negotiate with your potential. You begin to call your hesitation strategy. You call your self-doubt humility. You call your avoidance planning. But deep down, you know what's really going on. You're not waiting for the right moment. You're avoiding the moment that demands courage. You're not being smart. You're being scared and dressing it up to sound noble. And fear doesn't just keep you still. It builds habits around you. You start saying no to things that stretch you. You decline opportunities because they don't feel comfortable. You avoid hard conversations because they shake your sense of control. And you justify all of it by telling yourself you're being careful. You convince yourself you're doing the responsible thing. But the truth is, you're just protecting your ego from the risk of failing. You're more worried about how failure make you look than about how mediocrity is already making you feel. Let me tell you something. You don't get stronger by avoiding fear. You get stronger by walking straight through it. You don't become powerful by eliminating risk. You become powerful by learning to stand firm when the ground shakes beneath you. And that only happens when you stop letting fear wear the mask of logic. Because if you really dig deep, most of the logical reasons you give for not chasing your dream, not starting the thing, not walking away from what's breaking you, they all fall apart under pressure. They're flimsy. They collapse when you ask, is this truly the truth? Or just what's easier to believe right now? That's a brutal question, but it's necessary. Because fear thrives on your unwillingness to challenge it. It grows in the shadows of your excuses. But the moment you shine a light on it, the moment you confront it and say, this isn't reason, this is fear, you take back control. And don't get me wrong. Fear will never completely go away. It's wired into your biology. It's your brain trying to keep you alive. But let me be clear, there's a massive difference between staying alive and actually living. And most people, they're just surviving. They wake up every day and build their routines around avoiding anything that feels risky or uncertain. And sure, they're safe. But they're also stuck. They're also unfulfilled. They're also quietly dying inside because they know they were made for more. But they've let fear hold the pen to their story. The reality is, everything you want exists on the other side of discomfort. That business you dream about building. It will require you to look foolish at first. That relationship you want. It will require you to be vulnerable and risk rejection. That version of yourself that's strong, successful, respected. They don't emerge from hiding. They come to life when you move through fear, not around it. And I've seen it. I've lived it. Fear tried to tell me to stay in line, to not speak up, to wait until I was ready. But you're never really ready. Not for the real stuff. Not for the stuff that transforms you. Readiness is a myth. It's fear's favorite disguise. What matters is not whether you feel ready. It's whether you choose to act anyway. And if you're still not convinced, ask yourself this: who would you be right now if you had never let fear sit in the driver's seat? Who would you be if you had taken that leap when your heart told you to, instead of waiting for your head to approve it? Think about that version of you, the one who didn't hold back, the one who wasn't constantly trying to calculate safety, the one who didn't second-guess her own strength. That version of you still exists. She's not gone, she's just buried under layers of fear you've mistaken for logic. So now the question becomes, are you going to keep living by fear's rules? Or are you finally going to recognize the voice of fear for what it is, a liar with a very convincing tone? A manipulator who knows exactly how to speak your language. A deceiver who sounds like your friend but keeps you from your future. Because that's what's at stake. Not just a missed opportunity, but a stolen future. Fear won't just keep you from one decision. It will keep you from becoming. And if you don't push back now, you'll wake up one day realizing you lived a life that felt safe, but not one that felt true. You'll look back and see all the places you said no, not because you couldn't, but because you were afraid. And that regret, that's the most dangerous outcome of all. Not the failure, not the mistakes, but the slow erosion of self, caused by a lifetime of saying no to what you were built for. So stop dressing up fear as intelligence. Start calling it what it is, and then do the thing anyway. Walk toward it, speak the truth, take the leap. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving while fear is still screaming in your ear. And if you want the life you promised yourself, if you want to meet the version of you that you've always known was in there, then you have to stop negotiating with fear. You have to stand up, look it in the face, and say, not this time, not today, not with my future on the line, not with everything I'm capable of waiting on the other side. Fear will always knock. The question is, are you still going to open the door? You didn't lose the fire. You didn't lose the drive. You didn't lose the version of you that once swore, I will change my life. She's still in there. He's still in there. That version of you didn't die. They just got buried. Under the weight of expectations. Under disappointments. Under the noise of everyone else's opinions. Life threw things at you. Hard things. And somewhere along the line, survival became more important than growth. You stopped fighting to become, and started fighting just to get by. And slowly, without even realizing it, you started dimming your own light. You stopped showing up as the version of you that was fearless, bold, and unapologetically hungry for more. But let me tell you something. That fire didn't go out. It's still burning, maybe quieter, maybe softer. But it's there. You feel it every time you settle for less and your gut tightens. You hear it every time you say, I'm fine. And it echoes back, no, you're not. That fire, that inner knowing, is the most honest part of you, and it's patient. It will wait years if it has to, but it won't let you forget who you were supposed to become. You weren't always this quiet. You weren't always this hesitant. There was a time you had wild dreams, big goals, and no filter when it came to saying, watch me. You believed in something greater for yourself. You didn't know how, but you knew you would. And somewhere, when life got heavy, you put that version of you on a shelf and said, later. But later turned into never, and now here you are, pretending you don't remember who you used to be. But you do, you remember how it felt to be excited, to have a mission, to look in the mirror and feel fire in your eyes. And if you feel like that version is gone, let me be clear, they're not. They're waiting for you to remember them. Waiting for you to stop hiding behind excuses. Waiting for you to stop lowering your standards just to fit into rooms that weren't built for your greatness. Reclaiming that version of you doesn't require magic. It doesn't require a miracle. It requires one decision to stop living like you've already peaked. To stop walking through life like you're powerless. Because you're not. You never were. You just started believing the lie that what you once wanted was unrealistic. But who told you that? Who planted that seed? Who made you believe that your dream had an expiration date? The people who lost their own fire will always try to convince you to snuff out yours. They'll say things like, it's too late, or you've changed, or that's not practical. No. What they really mean is, You're reminding me of everything I gave up on. And that makes them uncomfortable. So they'll try to talk you back into the cage they built for themselves. But your soul knows better. You know better. And if you've gone quiet for too long, it's time to get loud again. Time to speak your vision back into existence. Time to move like you still believe. Because the most powerful thing can ever do is remember. Remember who you were before the world tried to tame you. Before pain made you cautious. Before rejection made you doubt. That version of you wasn't naive, they were brave, and you still are. So dig deep, go back, reconnect. That fire inside you, it was never gone. You just stopped feeding it. Now it's time to bring it back to life, not by waiting, not by wishing, but by choosing, today, to become again. To become who you were always meant to be. There's this illusion we all buy into at some point. That someone's coming. That there's going to be this moment, this person, this break, this perfect opportunity that's going to save us from our mess, our chaos, our pain. We hold out, hoping someone will see how hard it's been, how much we've endured, and finally offer us the solution. But the truth, no one is coming, not to rescue you, not to fix it, not to hand you the life you promised yourself, because the only one who can do that, the only one, is you. That can sound harsh, but it's also the most empowering truth you'll ever accept. Because when you stop waiting, you start moving. When you stop outsourcing your strength, you start owning it. And I get it. It's easier to wait for someone to come along and tell you what to do, guide you, open the door for you. But depending on someone else to give you permission to rise is the fastest way to stay small. You have to decide that you are your own rescue, you are your own lifeline. You are the strategy, the muscle, the grit, the blueprint. And no one knows better than you what it's going to take. People might support you, sure. They might inspire you. But they can't do the work for you. They can't rewrite your story. Only you can put your hands on that pen and start a new chapter. And here's the thing. Being your own rescue doesn't mean you always know what you're doing. It doesn't mean you never fall. It means that every time you do, you choose not to stay there. It means you say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm still going. It means showing up for yourself on the days you don't feel like it. Because you made a promise to your future and you refuse to break it. And people will try to tell you that you need to slow down. That you're doing too much. That you need to wait for the right team, the right timing, the right mentor. But what if none of those things ever come? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you swore you'd build is your decision to stop waiting and start moving? You want to build something different. Then stop standing at the edge of your life like a guest waiting to be invited in. You don't need an invitation. This is your life. You don't need someone to validate your dreams. You don't need someone to say, now you're ready. You've always been ready. You've just been taught to doubt your own power. You have to become the kind of person who backs themselves, who chooses themselves, who doesn't wait to be chosen. Because here's the true thing. The longer you wait for someone else to pick you, the longer you stay unclaimed. And the most dangerous thing you can ever do is hand your power to someone who doesn't know what to do with it. So stand up, not because someone pulled you up, but because you chose to rise. Because you decided you weren't going to let one more day go by pretending you're helpless. You are not helpless. You are not broken. You are not waiting. You are building. Right here, right now. You are your own rescue. And you always have been. The moment you start taking your life seriously, the moment you start raising your standards, setting boundaries, protecting your peace, watch what happens. People will push back, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your growth threatens their comfort. You will hear things like, you've changed. And yes, you have. That's the point. But the people who gave up on themselves will take your growth personally. Your courage will irritate their fear. Your discipline will expose their excuses. And instead of dealing with their own discomfort, they'll try to drag you back into the version of life they settled for. You become a mirror, a reflection of everything they said they were going to do, but didn't. Everything they dreamed of, but let die. And it's easier for them to mock your progress than to face their own regret. So they'll talk. They'll criticize. They'll make subtle comments to chip away at your momentum. You're too intense. You think you're better than us now. You've become selfish. No, you've become focused. And people who are lost will always try to distract the one who found their way. But here's where it gets dangerous. If you're not strong in who you are, you'll start to shrink again. You'll start to second-guess yourself. You'll start dialing it back to make other people feel more comfortable. You'll start apologizing for your ambition. You'll minimize your wins so they don't feel small in your presence. And that's when you start betraying yourself all over again. You worked too damn hard to wake up. Don't go back to sleep just because someone else refused to open their eyes. This is the true thing, not everyone is going to come with you. And that's okay. Growth comes with loss. You lose relationships that were built on the old version of you. You lose conversations that once gave you comfort but now drain your energy. You lose the need to explain yourself to people who already decided they wouldn't understand. And that loss, it's not punishment, it's proof. Proof that you're evolving. You have to decide whose opinion you're going to prioritize, the voice of someone who gave up, or the voice inside you that still believes. Because both will speak. One will tempt you to stay small. The other will dare you to rise. And only one of them leads to the life you said you were going to live. So when the critics come, and they will, let them talk. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you growth ego or arrogance or selfishness. Because people who are afraid to rise will always label confidence as a threat. But you don't owe them comfort. You owe yourself truth. You owe yourself alignment. You owe yourself the life you saw when no one else believed in you. And if walking that path means walking alone for a while, then so be it. Because the price of staying in rooms you've outgrown is too high. It'll cost you your peace, your purpose, your power. So let them judge. Let them whisper. You're not here to make them comfortable. You're here to become who you were always meant to be. Every single day you delay is another quiet act of self-betrayal. It may not feel dramatic. It may not feel destructive. But it adds up. Every morning you hit snooze on your goals. Every moment you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow. Every time you put off that one thing you know would move your life forward. You're not just postponing progress. You're teaching yourself that your vision isn't urgent. And when something stops feeling urgent, it eventually stops feeling important. That's how people lose themselves. Not in one big explosion, but in 1,000 small delays they told themselves didn't matter. But they do matter. That 5-minute excuse turns into 5 years of waiting. That one skipped decision turns into a lifestyle of hesitation. That small voice in your head saying, you can do it later, becomes your autopilot. And suddenly, you look up, and the life you promised yourself is nowhere in sight. Not because it wasn't possible, but because you kept pressing pause. And let's be honest, you know exactly what needs to be done. You don't need more time, more clarity, more approval. What you need is movement. Discipline isn't about motivation. It's about honoring the promise. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. Because you refuse to let yourself down one more time. We get stuck because we keep underestimating the cost of delay. You think you're buying time, but what you're really doing is selling off your future in little pieces. One day you'll realize the price wasn't just lost time. It was lost confidence, lost identity, lost momentum. You won't trust yourself anymore, because deep down you'll remember all the times you said, I will, and didn't. And I don't say that to shame you. I say it to wake you up. Because this is where it changes. Not next year, not when it's convenient. Right now. It changes when you decide that your word to yourself is final. It changes when you stop negotiating with procrastination and start executing with precision. Because procrastination isn't laziness. It's avoidance. And what you're avoiding isn't the task. It's the transformation that comes with becoming the person who actually follows through. You want to rebuild trust with yourself. You want to look in the mirror and believe what you say again. Then stop delaying the work. Do the thing. Make the call. Take the step. And do it now. Not because it's easy, but because your future is bleeding while you wait. Because the dream, it's not dying because you don't care. It's dying because you're not moving. And every second you waste waiting for the perfect moment, someone else is out there, building, working, pushing while you're still getting ready to begin. Life doesn't wait for your fears to subside. It moves with or without you. So if you said this is the year, the season, the chapter, then act like it. Let your behavior finally match your belief, because talk without action is just noise. But commitment, that's how you change your life. Not tomorrow, today. Regret doesn't show up like failure. It doesn't slam the door or shout in your face. It's not loud or dramatic. No, regret is patient. It's quiet. It's that subtle, persistent ache in your chest when you realize you've been living small. It's that soft whisper in the back of your mind that creeps in when the world goes silent. It says, you were meant for more, and you know it. It doesn't scream. It lingers. It sits in the spaces between your choices, reminding you of every time you said no to yourself. And the worst part, you don't even realize you're building regret until it's already woven into your days. You go through the motions. You check the boxes. You play it safe, and on the outside, everything looks fine. But inside, you feel it. That heaviness, that knowing, that quiet question that keeps coming back at, is this really the life I promised myself? And deep down, you already know the answer. You didn't come this far just to blend in. You didn't survive everything you've been through just to end up with a life that doesn't light you up. But regret is what you get when you ignore that voice for too long. When you prioritize comfort over purpose. When you keep telling yourself you'll chase your dream later. Until later becomes never. And I've seen it. People at the end of their journey, looking back, not haunted by the risks they took, but by the ones they didn't. Not tormented by the failures, but by the chances they never gave themselves. Because deep inside they knew they were capable of more. But they waited, they hesitated, they played small, and now the only thing they have left is that quiet echo of what could have been. That's what regret does. It doesn't ruin your life all at once. It drains you slowly, one excuse at a time, one opportunity ignored, one fear obeyed, and eventually, you wake up and realize you're no longer choosing your life. You're just existing in it. But here's the truth you need to learn: you still have time. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're waking up, as long as your heart's still beating, you have the chance to fight for the life you said you wanted. But you've got to stop pretending you have forever. You don't. None of us do. And that urgency, that's your power. That's what's going to separate you from everyone who talks but never moves. Everyone who dreams but never builds. Everyone who settles but deep down wishes they hadn't. If you don't want to carry the weight of regret, you have to start honoring the weight of your potential. That means doing the hard things, having the uncomfortable conversations, taking the leap when your legs are shaking, choosing action when your fear says, wait. That's how you avoid waking up one day and realizing the life you're in is the exact opposite of the one you promised yourself. Because regret doesn't ask permission. It just arrives, and it stays. It makes a home in your heart and keeps you up at night. But discipline, focus, courage, they keep regret out. They protect you from becoming a ghost in your own story. So if there's something in you still burning, still aching, still fighting, don't let it go quiet. Don't wait for the noise to go away. Don't tell yourself you'll do it someday. Because one day, someday will turn into never, and all you'll be left with is the echo of what you refuse to chase. Don't give your future that ending. Choose different. Choose now. Choose you. So now you know. No more pretending. No more hiding behind distractions, delays, or doubts. You made a promise to yourself, and it's time you kept it. Not for the world, not for applause, for you. Because your life is not a rehearsal. This is it. And every day you choose to step up, to remember, to move, you take back your power. You take back your fire. You take back the story that was always meant to be yours. So stand up. Look yourself in the mirror, and say it like you mean it. I'm done breaking promises to myself. Then prove it, with your discipline, with your choices, with your life.